to stage a performance based on those paintings and etchings in his studio, and these are sort of the working drawing / paintings that came out of it. You can see very nice photos of grotesque things with them painted upon. This work is by Dora Garcia. Those are backwards copies of Fahrenheit 451. She collects those paperbacks. Every time she finds a new one, she makes a new edition. And you can look at the books, but they're not free. It's sort of an edition sculpture, which is a specific table with these copies of the backwards Fahrenheit 451. This work is by Alan Hugo. Those are photo silkscreen reproductions of paintings he's been doing for years called the standard paintings. That's loosely based on the markings of a football pitch. As you can see in the photo, it's a painting sitting on little feet, and then the print is on glass and then standing on little feet. And then here's an actual painting of it. And as we'll see later, there's a painting of a photo of a painting that they were strategically placed throughout. The work in the foreground is by Anina Roldan and Falca Paisano. The piece is called Dynamo. There are 3 different games that you don't specifically know the rules to, but it's more about seeing a situation that has been acted in. So they're very interested in rules and change and so forth. These are paintings by another British artist, Gerald Hemsworth. This is another Dora Garcia piece, which totally kicked my ass. She does these great sort of totalitarian statements or philosophical statements about art and so forth that seem very quotable, but oftentimes are made up by herself. This is Gold Leaf to the Wall, and it says, translated, "Art is for everyone, but only the elite realize it," which I think is a great sort of position to take, but then it's also, it casts doubt. Is it the elite's fault for obfuscating art, or is it the general people's art for not going out to try to engage with it? This is a series of photos of black dots by John DeVola. It's based in LA, I believe. And he goes around, for this project, he went around to abandoned buildings and left his mark, which was this black spray paint circle, and then documented it. This is the Alan Uglo photograph of a painting printed as a painting on feet. This is by Zhu Zhen, who's an artist based in Shanghai that never leaves Shanghai. You may be familiar with the Damien Hirst sort of copy of a Diplodocus swimming dinosaur in a vitrine the way the sharks or the cows were, but it was very realistic, made entirely of actual meat and like an incredibly accurate sculpture of an animal that we don't know what it looked like. For this piece, there was this little rock, which you can see here, that you could only see on the microscope, and it was a photograph of Neil Armstrong's footprint in the moon called "Just Did It," sort of questioning America's achievements and how monumental they actually are. This piece is in the basement. There are these bright lights set up with these cameras and monitors where you see the room that you're in, but it's dark. And it's called the space, wait, no, I want to get this one right too. The darkness in between. So the cameras are calibrated with those really obnoxious, obtrusive lights that actually have cycles that you can't see of flickering. And so the frame rate of the video camera is timed with the light, so the frame of the video only takes a picture when the lights are cycled off. So in real time, you're seeing the room in darkness and seeing yourself in it in darkness. So that sort of about does it for the overview of the Summer Academy. What I was hoping to do is kind of bring up some of the main points that seem to come up in these conversations we had, and then see if people would like to discuss them. Like I said, the decision was made to sort of forego having an exhibition, and Teardad's thinking on that was what would be more beneficial for artists coming, like to put together another show of a group thing and sort of argue with each other about how it's all going to work out, or to have this time to sort of just use the environment as a sounding board to talk about ideas you have, or to perhaps present projects you're thinking of doing and to discuss them. So like I said, we came up with a few topics that were brought up when visiting lecturers talked or when artists talked, but then also seemed to keep coming up in discussions we'd have later with other lecturers or discussions when we're out drinking and hanging out. So the first topic is labor and free time. Is the labor of art making done in free time? Consider the different possible interpretations of the term productivity and the assumption that free time is something to be gained. Free time suggests its opposites. It suggests unfree time, or that there's paid time or useful time. It also suggests an opposition between the non-alienated labor of cake and the regime of bread, to paraphrase Jacques Rancière and Suhail Malik. Suhail Malik was from Goldsmiths and one of the visiting lecturers. What is specific in being involved with art as a way of dealing with time that is opposed to both empty time and busy time? So what is the time we're here now? Is this productive time? Is this labor time? A lot of us are here out of interest or out of dedication, and it's considered work, but what is the product of it? Immaterial, which that flows into. Something like this Fest. What is the product? What comes out of it? Is this material or immaterial? It reflects on the relationships between manual and intellectual work, which is another topic I'm interested in, especially in a city like Chicago. Which type of labor is more valued? The labor where you produce a well-crafted object, or the labor that's thought about through academic thinking or discourse or performative or something where there's not a tangible result, but something did take place? Withdrawal, which is another thing a lot of artists and lecturers spoke on. Bruce Hanley brought up Sturtevant, who you may have been at her lecture recently, who went through a period of withdrawal. In her lecture she talked about that America not being ready or interested in her type of philosophy or approach to art. So basically leaving America and then turning up in Paris later. The main one we start taking tally of, everyone brought up Lee Lozano, who's very coming to the fore again, but removed herself from the art world. And there's also different approaches to withdrawal. Is it done out of necessity? Is it a project? There's a performance artist, Ted Ching Yishai, who purposely withdrew from the art world for a year as a piece, which the parameters of the piece, well, I will not talk about art, I will not go see art, I will not go to art events, followed by another one where he withdrew even further for 10 years. So sometimes the idea of removing self from the art world is a sort of aesthetic gesture on art. Another artist, Charlotte Poznanska, German artist that I hadn't heard of, but kind of has the Lee Lozano status in Europe, was a German artist interested in minimal sculpture and came to the conclusion that her art did no good for her political interests. And so there's that withdrawal. What good does art do? What can I do with it? So therefore I remove myself out of that necessity. And then finally, the big one, specificity. Issues of specificity seem to be coming up again. And Teardad in his lecture brought up how as art becomes more and more multimedia and more co-mingled with life, it becomes harder and harder to say what are the specific qualities that make something art versus real life. So if anyone would like to jump in or has a question or anything.
I do, but I'm still formulating it.
Okay. Well, I know Andre has one.
Yeah. What was your experience of race relations in Switzerland?
In which races? All?
Just like, there's a lot of honkies on these photos.
Yes. Should I answer this way or just
This one.
this way?
Yeah. Well, I think it's also the art world bubble